Hello, wise owls. Here we are again. Another new moon, the Virgo new moon 2019, which comes in on Friday, August 30th at 6:36 a.m. Eastern Time at 7 degrees of Virgo with the Mahavidya, the wisdom goddess Shadashi, on duty. So, before I begin, I would like to beg your forgiveness, wise owls, because I'm kind of all over the place. For the first time in my life, every single planet is aspecting in my chart. It's surreal. I don't know what day it is. I can't recall the season. I don't remember how we got this far. I'm quoting the Jayhawks. So let's just think of this as kind of a freestyle Laura around the campfire at sunset. I am recording as the sun is setting. And if I told you all the things that had gone wrong to prepare to get ready to do this recording, you would not believe me. So if I waited until I had it all together, it would, to where it was up to my standard, it wouldn't get done. So it kind of is what it is, guys. I am going to endeavor to keep it real. And this one is going to be probably a little more personal than and different than the way I usually cover the new moon overview. I'm going to cover more of the big picture as opposed to breaking down into the individual planets and what they're all doing. I'm going to talk about that, but there's a bigger message I want to relate. Okay, the title, the real title of this recording for the Virgo 2019 new moon is The Archons, the Inner Child, and Mass Trauma. I will not be putting that up on the description. What we're seeing now, right now, as we load in to the new moon, is Mars in trine to Uranus, and Uranus at the chiron point. The chiron point happens to be my ascendant, and when Uranus conjuncts your ascendant or your sun, it's very intense and you don't sleep. So I don't sleep anymore, and that makes all kinds of things more difficult. And I am only talking about this because, it's not about me, but it relates the larger energetic. We know that Chiron rules the wounded, healer, and teacher. It rules trauma. And Uranus rules change. And what we have right now is a mass trauma dump leading into the Virgo new moon at 7 degrees of Virgo and the Sabian symbol of a harem. And I talked about this on the Oracle Report yesterday about harems and my speculation that this cycle, this upcoming month, we would learn a lot more about the sex trafficking ring, the child sex trafficking, the pedophile ring, and we were going to have a lot more answers. And it looks like it's kind of going that way. What's happening right now is that all of our life traumas are all rolled up into one like a big rubber band ball. These are the traumas from childhood. Now, the Tavistock Institute's plan to deconstruct family bonds through social engineering has been wildly successful. It produces childhood wounds for all of us because when we're born and then we come into the world and it's scary, it's traumatizing because with the social engineering everything is all askew. It's not a safe place in general. And because people have been socially engineered to behave and act and model in certain ways, a lot of trauma occurs in early childhood. Now, when Chiron was discovered, it was the beginning of the whole John Bradshaw inner child, wounded inner child work that came along, and all of the self-help movement of the late 70s and the early 80s. And that's when people began discussing childhood traumas. It really wasn't discussed before that. It wasn't given any kind of consideration, really. Children weren't as valued in previous generations. And what this had us doing was, for those of you who weren't around at that time, we began to examine our safety in the world because it was engineered this way, and we have this mass trauma and this mass mind control. And no one is really has been immune to it. Some people have, they had peaceful, serene childhoods, but not many. And few oracle report readers, because most of you have the Eris point or the Chiron point aspected in your chart somewhere, and that's why you've resonated here at Oracle Report, and that's why so many other people don't. That's why it's a small community, which I love, by the way. um, but whatever kind of traumas that we experienced, whether it was a parent who was abusive or neglectful, or the abandonment of by a parent, or maybe there was violence, or maybe there was even some kind of criminality, something that made you feel unsafe. Maybe there was some sexual abuse or some physical abuse. Maybe it was bullying by other children or by adults or by a brother or sister. Bullying is quite traumatic. It's a myriad of things that cause us to feel unsafe in the world. So what that does via a concerted effort is take our focus off of our self-actualization, and it puts that energy into us having to manage our traumas, the old ones and then the new ones, because whenever we experience a new trauma, it always brings up an old trauma, even if you have worked on that trauma and that pain. That's the way it happens. It triggers traumas. Now, notice also that within the mainstream, the buzzword is trigger. They have co-opted all the whole syndrome, the post-traumatic stress syndrome, into everybody has PTSD, or I'm so triggered about this, and then we have snowflakes, and it really has diluted the discussion and minimized what it really is, because it is a very real thing. We are traumatized by the archons. Life in the world today is traumatizing. And so as we lead into this new moon in Virgo, with Mars in trine to Uranus, it's building a lot of energy for change, for healing. And this is what is bringing up the mass collective, we would say the collective wounding, the wounding of the collective consciousness. So picture with me, if you will, a triangle. At the top we have the archons, and then at the next level down we have, let's call them the controllers. Let's just say they are outside the dome, so to speak, very unknown to us. Is it aliens? What is it? Is it an older civilization? What is that directly there? And then we have the ruling families, and then we have their think tanks, their elite thinkers like the Tavistock Institute. And then we have their executive minions, and then we have their bureaucracy, the layer of bureaucracy, the parallel bureaucracies in place in every country that answers to the crown, the British crown. Okay, because that's who's in control of all of this. That's who's running the game here. I forgot one. Under the controllers, we have the Jesuits and the Illuminati. Okay, because the Jesuits and the Illuminati tell the monarchs what to do. They are the go-between between that controller level. The archons infiltrated the controller level, and then it filters down, and it goes all the way down. But the answer to the question of how did this all happen is archons, interdimensional, hyperdimensional, parasitic beings discussed in the Nag Hammadi. So we're down to that bureaucratic level of the senior executive service that implements the plans for everyday civilization, day-to-day life, and how that proceeds, and in what type of structures and formats. And then we have us, the mass of us, our wounded inner child, all of us. This month is designed to help us solve that inner child wound. You may think you have worked on all of that and you're past all of that, but because all of this is coming out about the trafficking and the murder of children and the satanic ritual abuse and everything, all of it, we are all experiencing the mass wounding again. So some people may not have really come very far with dealing with their inner child wounding. Some might be pretty far along with that. But we're seeing this, it's demonstrated by putting a face on the trauma. So some people think that the face of their own personal trauma, their own rubber band ball that's all of their traumas rolled up into one, the face of that evil is Donald Trump. And for some people, that the face of all of that trauma is Hillary Clinton. And all of the personal trauma that is unresolved and all of the injustice that is felt is then projected onto that screen, and the divide of this is what we're seeing. And what it's really about, or what we can do about that, is bring it back down to us personally and handling our own feelings about things and looking at injustice versus justice in another way, and understanding that it is a culmination of its multi-generational effects of insidious infection of the archonic mind. We are conditioned to look at everything on the level from the Illuminati down to us. Okay, we get focused on declassification or the Comey report or anything, just pick anything. There's about a million things to choose from. And then everyone gets upset about the injustice and wants something, to happen. It's a trap to get stuck in that level and in any of those levels, because we always must bring it back to the top level, to the level of the archons. Our fellow humans are not our enemy. The archons are the ones responsible for this. And so when you don't know where to put the feelings that you're having and your outrage and the fact that it's bringing up all your personal injustices, remember where that belongs. Remember that it is not human at all. Because it makes all the difference in the world, every single bit of it, to focus on the real enemy. And I say focus on, I don't mean focus on it, I mean to attribute it to the proper place. All right? The goal here is to rise above at the level and see what the real level is. Okay, we are get mired in all of the minutia of everything, of the collapse of the New World Order. And that can be overwhelming. And the reason I'm saying this is because this next cycle is going to be a little overwhelming. Not a little, it's going to be a lot overwhelming. Okay, the Mahavidya Shadashi is in full force. This month we're going to have one punch, and then the next month the Libra cycle will be the second one. Okay, it's going to be 2 months of serious degradation of the control systems. That means it's a rough ride. So my message here is examine your personal traumas, examine where you're projecting. Don't become mired in the details of everything that is happening. understand that there are narratives being driven to have you think a certain way. The, the Jeffrey Epstein narrative. Now, a lot of you have heard my recording that I did about him and my belief that he's still very much alive and has resumed his place as a high priest, performing the rituals. The narrative wants you to focus on teenagers and young adult women as victims of this. Why? Because they do not want you to focus on the children. Because the fact of the matter is, age 5 is when they try to grab them. Something happens in the brain and the archons attack children at age 5. The first attack comes at birth if they're targeted for attack, and then the next one is at age 5. Because we have a different reaction. It's somehow more palatable for us to process sexual assault, rape, murder of teenagers than it is young children. About, how long now? 3 years ago, I was at an Amos Lee concert, an outdoor concert in Louisville, Kentucky. And for people outside of Kentucky, that is Louisville. The Louisvillians pronounce it Louisville. I call it Luciferville. I was at this concert and I was scheduled to go on Zany Mystics fireside chat show. And so I left the concert early to get on the line with Lance. And one of the questions he asked me was humanity ready to understand the level of the pedophile ring, the sex trafficking ring? And I said no. But what has happened over these years, and most of you have been with me a lot of years, we have been priming or preparing the field of consciousness for the collective of humanity to be able to handle it, to be able to process it, to be able to look at it and then change it. So you all have held the space. I opened the space, but you all have been holding it the whole time till now, the place that we've come to, the time that we've come to. And that's a big deal. Because what 1,000 people have done in consciousness has blazed the trail for thousands and thousands and thousands of others, millions even. And so we didn't talk about it, you and me, all the time. It wasn't something that I mentioned all the time, but I mentioned it enough to help you acclimate. And it was hard. People, it was just really hard to hear about. And I'm so very proud. I'm so very honored and awed at your bravery. And I'd like to especially note my dear friend Anna, who worked with me at the Rape Crisis Center, and we were in Metro, D.C., fighting the good fight. Thank you, Anna. Thank you all. It's been the primary objective, my mission of the Oracle Report, to bring us to this point in time. My whole life has led to this point. My whole life. So it's a little overwhelming for me, as you might understand. Now, the aim now is quality of life. And we want to refocus on the experience of life. Some of us remember life before the internet. Dare I say it was better? What do you think? If you were around before the internet. Life has been interrupted. It's just become interrupted. And our will has been degraded. We think it's a miracle when someone is able to break out of the apathy and the lethargy of the systematic degradation and actually produce something. We've become accustomed to consuming passively, intaking the outside, the external. And in a significant way, we've lost the will to create. Many have. It has been very hard. We've been set up to think creativity is irrelevant if it isn't commercialized and it's able to derive profit. And we have silly YouTube content. That's the norm, and that's even like considered the height of creativity. It's time to jump off of that merry-go-round, that timeline, that reality. We have to make major changes, and this is what Uranus is pressing us to do. We have to send our psyches, our consciousness, into a better world while physically moving through or out of the collapsing world. We're like, have to be early birds or early owls to do this. Okay, if your passion doesn't support your basic needs for shelter and food, etc., you don't just give it up. Astrology is not my passion, contrary to what you might believe. Astrology is my service and my mission. I don't particularly like making my living through astrology. I like helping people solve things through astrology. But overall, it's been a very difficult road, and I've given up or lost just about everything in order to bring truth, and I would do it all over again. The Leo cycle has been about creating, co-creating with spirit. Remember, the Sabian symbol was glass blowers create beautiful vases with their controlled breathing. It's actually glass blowers shape beautiful vases with their controlled breathing. It's been about the expression of creativity and individual expression. The decline of creativity is truly tyrannical, and it's evil. It is. I propose that we walk away from the matrix, so to speak, and create our vessel. This is what the Mahavidyas, the message they brought me in the month of co-creation. It wasn't that we were shaping vases, we were shaping vessels like lifeboats to leave the matrix in. And those vessels are created and constructed from our creativity, from our imagination. Okay, the New World Order is collapsing. The control paradigm is collapsing. What do you do when something is collapsing, like a building? You leave. And I'm talking about in consciousness, okay? Please understand. It's time to take to your lifeboat now. What is the things that are going to buoy you and get you across? We want to leave the sinking ship. So the lifeboat is the vessel, is your creative force. And creativity comes in a myriad of ways. It's not just the fine arts and music and wordsmithing. It comes also in landscaping, organizing things, repairing things, restoring, designing, parenting, grandparenting. What do you truly love to do? It's not necessarily your profession, but maybe it is. Can you re-engage your imagination to bring about balance? What would that vessel that contains you and sustains you and carries you be? It's lots of things. It's your friendships. It's your love of animals. It is what makes you you. It's who you truly are. Who I truly am is combat boots and eyeshadow palettes. That's the story of me. You can know everything about me from that. I say that because Shadashi is the goddess of beauty. I'm most certainly a devotee of the goddess Shadashi because I like my little eyes love beautiful things. I like to look at pretty things and beautiful art. How does that relate into the Sabian symbol for this month, a harem? The symbol speaks to feeling dominated, about competition, jealousy, being bestowed as the chosen one, people being seen as important and others being seen as not important. But really, what this is going to do is expose the tentacles of the child sex trafficking and the murder ring. It's going to expose it all. Let's look at the other symbols. Mars is that a girl takes her first dancing instruction. This is us joining with spirit. This is us joining the fairies dancing in the setting sun, the Sabian symbol for the year. We take part. Venus, which is conjunct the asteroid Vulcan, is that a bride with her veil snatched away. The ceremonies are going to be revealed. Mercury at two guardian angels bringing protection. These are the wisdom goddesses Shadashi and Matangi. They always work together. Shadashi has plans, Matangi helps her administer them. Jupiter is that seagulls fly around a ship looking for food. We will no longer settle for scraps. Saturn. In a hospital, the children's ward is filled with toys. Let's fill the children's world. I like that better. How about you? I'd love to fill the children's world with toys. We will care for the children and make sure that the pedophile ring ends. That's what that says. It means we take up the responsibility. It's Saturn. Pluto is at a relay race. It is a race to bring people to justice. The earth is at illuminated by a shaft of light. A large cross lies on rocks surrounded by sea and mist. The Illuminati and the perversion of spiritual beliefs falls. The black moon, a lady wrapped in fox fur. A woman who has deceived us and has thus far been protected. Who might that be? Is it the Queen? Do you know what the Sabian symbol of the Queen's ascendant is? I didn't know this until a friend of mine prompted me to go look at her chart. I've never looked at her chart. I don't like to look at wicked people's charts because basically I tap into their Akashic record and it's ugly. The Sabian symbol for her ascendant is the general accepting defeat gracefully. The degree that Pluto completed discharge of recently. Neptune is that in a huge tent, a famous revivalist conducts his meeting with a spectacular performance. Viva la Revolution. Chiron is that a triangle with wings. This is the Sabian symbol for the new moon in Aries in 2020. Fly away, New World Order. Uranus, a woman of Samaria, comes to draw water from the well. This is the last drops of the Sumerian, Babylonian, Phoenician, Roman, British Empire. Your well runneth dry. What do you think, wise owls? A little bit of food for thought. I'm going to be changing up a few things on Orc Report. I'm not going to be posting every day as I have been for the last couple of months. I'm going to post regularly, but I probably also will have more freestyle type reports where I'm not writing them out because I have books that I need to complete, and a lot of my creativity and my writing capability is used in that time that I try to make hay of all the day's Sabian symbols to find the needle in the haystack. But this is important for me to create my vessel. Uranus is forcing me to change. My friend Uranus. I know a lot about Uranus. Uranus conjunct my sun in like 2002 and totally upended my life. And so I know how it works, and I always know it always brings the better things for us. So trust me when I say that Uranus is paving the way for a better world for us in conjunction with Chiron. Okay, these are powerhouse energies that are sweeping through like a wave to heal us, to bring all this ugliness and darkness out, the harem. Could there be a more perfect Sabian symbol for what is happening right now? It's intense. The stories are intense. You don't have to listen to them. It's not your responsibility to listen to the details of the stories. It's enough to know who and what has really caused this, and that's the archons. We will not forget. All right, wise owls, thanks for your indulgence. Remember, truth and love prevails, always. I'll see you next time.